just sand. Yeah, so a little bit of a joke, but also kind of not. I ordered that sand hoping it would arrive yesterday and I could use that sand in here because it's a little bit lighter and I think it looks a little bit better. There's not a lot in it, but yeah, it's here now. Not to worry though, because I can just sprinkle some over the top if I want to, and I might do that once we put all the sort of detail in, because that's what we've got to do today. Detail, detail, detail. Plants, yeah. But remember, I did say I'm not just going to be putting massive plants near it like straight away, because loads of you won't have that. Most of the plants you're going to buy, I can't look at this. Yeah, I'm just chilled. Yeah, most of the plants you guys are going to buy are like going to be in pots. They're going to be small. We're not going to have an absolute ton of them, so it's not going to look like we're usually planting when it's done. When it's just chock-a-block full and finished, this is much more of a growing process. Watch along. Yeah, it's going to be enjoyable. Like even for me. Because even I don't do that. I suppose you could say it's more of a true test of skill, because if you fill the tank up with plants straight away, you're already going to be onto a winner. It's going to be so hard for algae to grow and that kind of thing. So doing it this way, the way that you guys would do it, although to be fair, I did used to do it this way. I haven't always had access to just tons and tons of plants. So when I first started doing aquariums in my shed, I used to go and look for the deals. You know, you get like a bunch of, I don't know, like 5 plants in a pot for like the deal, whatever the deal was. And I'd just take that because that's all I could afford at the time, and I'd plant them. And I'd always go for stems as well, because I knew I could like trim them and replant them and get more out of them. I'd rarely have gone for carpeting plants back then, just because my skills weren't good enough. And I often found that they just died straight away, and I didn't really know why. Now I know it's because there wasn't getting enough light down there, or there wasn't enough nutrients for the root systems to grow. So yeah, it's like don't think that I've always had it easy. It's just that, you know, I spent a long time just trying to learn to grow the plants. And once I did that, I then had loads of plants. Look at this. Look, it is early in the studio at the moment. Not even all the lights are on. The ones that are on are the ones that are on Wi-Fi plugs. They were all on Wi-Fi plugs. And then just one day, half of them stopped working. Couldn't fix them. And I was going to buy more, and I thought, well, that's probably just going to happen again. So now the ones that you can't see on are all on the old school manual click, click, click timers, which don't seem to fail. And I can't be bothered to go around and flick them all on because we're working on this tank. But yeah, they'll all come on in a bit. So here's my plant section for those of you that don't know. Any orders I get, I bring into the studio, obviously, and I put them down here at the bottom of the fish wall. Hang on. There is the fish wall. The fish wall is where I keep fish that haven't got homes yet because I haven't done a setup but wanted to buy them, or they're places for fish in quarantine. So these, as you can see, these are Cara. They started looking really, really rough. They have now gone through their treatment. I'm just going to see them. Hopefully they're going to get better and better. Definitely had some sort of internal parasite or something, but they're actually looking better than they were already. Their eyes were bulging out loads and they seem to be retracting. This one's getting some colour back. It didn't have any colour. And yeah, hopefully they're on the mend. But yeah, the plants come in. They've all got lids on, these tanks. And underneath the plants, look, you can see there's just an inch of water. So basically it's like a mini greenhouse, and all of the roots stay moist because of the rock wool in the pots. Except from these ones, which are the easy grow. All of the plants are from Aquafleur. I just absolutely love them. I think the quality is amazing. You get huge plants for your money that have grown really well. But for most bang for your buck, these pots do offer the most, because, so this is Halanthia tenellum, and there's absolutely tons of sprigs in there. They're all tiny and baby because they're like a tissue culture baby style thingy. I don't know what I'm saying. But yeah, although all of these plants, they start small, you get way more than you would in a pot. You just have to be a lot more patient with them. And usually, that is my downfall. So I guess now I need to decide like what would be the normal amount that I would have back in the day bought plant-wise for a tank this size. It's never ever going to be like cheap, is it? It's luxury items, a fish tank and plants. It's all out of expendable income. Saying that, when I was first doing it, it really wasn't. We had so little money left at the end of each week. And I'll be like straight to the fish shop. Kate would be like rolling her eyes like, oh, you don't need more plants, you don't need more of this. And I was like, I don't need it, no, but let's go. And I'm so glad I did, because obviously that's led me to where I am now, and obviously my wife's fully supportive of it. And my wife works with me now, you know, like behind the scenes, does tons of admin stuff and accounting and all that. Anyway, it's not about that. How many pots would be a good amount? So if I go by what I used to do, I'd go, if for half a tank this size, I'd go and get 5 pots. So it's double the size. I'm gonna go with 10 pots, you know, like actual pots, and then I'm gonna go with 6 of the tissue culture. Let me top that up maths-wise. Okay, so the Aquafleur pots average at around retail price of about £4 or 4.5 euros, $5, that kind of thing, just over. So 10 pots, it's gonna be £40, 47 euros, $52. And the Easy Grow, which is the tissue culture stuff, averages around £5 or 6 euros or $6.50. We need 6 of those, so that's about £50, 60 euros, $65. So the two together, about £90, 107 euros or $117, which, you know, for a tank that size, I think that's a good part of your budget to put in like that. Again, you don't have to get all these in one go. Like I probably wouldn't have back in the day. I probably would have 1 week got some, and then the week later got some, done a load of overtime or something to pay for it as well. So yeah, it's not a crazy amount of money, I don't think, to get going with, especially when you've already spent money on hardscape and all those sort of things. But I did kind of keep that light. That will keep costs down in itself, but also leave space for more plants, which is only going to mean that the tank stays awesome for longer. Now, obviously, prices are going to vary country to country, place to place. So I can only go on what I see, you know, for me. That said, if you can get them cheaper, get them more. If they're more expensive for you, then just build the collection over time. It doesn't have to be instantly. Don't get me wrong, the more you can get to start with, the easier it will be, but it doesn't make it impossible. It might just mean a bit more maintenance to start with. Although this is a self-sustaining tank, the idea is that obviously that's once it's up and going and settled in, which is normally a good month process. I've done it a lot quicker than that, don't get me wrong, but like when we're starting with less plants, it's gonna be a bit more difficult. And remember to go to your local fish shops, okay, and look for the deals. It's all about the deals. 5 pots for a tenner, something like that, you know. Those are the ones that I always used to go to. I used to travel 45 minutes away to a shop because I knew they had those deals. And one time I came back with like 20 pots and it wasn't that expensive, you know? So yeah, look for deals, look for online deals if you haven't got any in the shops, but you know, go to the shops. The shops will often do a deal that isn't displayed. If you say to them, like, can we do this for that? And yeah, they're gonna do it, aren't they? So yeah, although the tissue culture stuff does cost about 10% more, I think it would definitely, if you're on the tightest budget and want the most bang for your buck, just order only tissue culture. One of the reasons I always get the pots, I mean, most ferns are in pots anyway, and they're massive, which is probably the best way to go in terms of just getting size in the tank for lower money. So yeah, go with ferns, go with pots, but anything else, even stems, I'd say go with the tissue culture. I mean, one of the reasons I rarely use tissue culture is because I'm trying to create the end result straight away, and I don't have 2 months to wait before I can release a video. But it's definitely the way to go if you're doing it at home, I think. But anyway, before plants, I mean, I got ahead of myself there, but before we put the plants in, I wanted to add more detail into the tank. Now, some of you yesterday were questioning the sand and stuff I reused, saying that, you know, lots of people don't have access to just pots of used sand laying around. Well, don't worry about that. I mean, I could have used brand new sand. As you can see from the start of the video, I ordered brand new sand. The sand doesn't make any difference if it's used, new or anything. It's not the nutrient layer. The nutrient layer was the stuff underneath that was new. You know, it was new soil in the bag. It was new nutrient-base, which again isn't essential, but really does help in just that bedding in process. A lot of you are asking as well, what's an alternative to nutrient-base if you're in the US? I would, to be honest, get API root tabs, crush them all up and put them in with your soil, whatever soil you're going to be using, just to make sure that soil's got absolutely everything that the plant needs, because obviously a root tab or NutriBase is specifically designed with plants in mind. Not that a soil isn't, but you know, that's just what I always do, and I've found better results with adding in extra stuff in with the soil. But again, like I said, the soil you get will determine how much you need, you know, how well it works. Every soil is going to be a little bit different, isn't it? So that's just a little bit of experimentation. You might find you do this, that you set out the tank, you put all of your soil in, and you can never get algae to go. It stays murky all the time. And if that does happen, it's probably because you use too much soil. In that case, strip it down, do it again. I know it's a pain, it can be painful, but I've had to do that so many times over the years. Just like, I woke up in the morning, I've gone, I'm not really happy with it, give it a couple of days, nah, it's not good, rip the whole thing out, restart it. I mean, it's what makes us better, isn't it? Just, you know, having a go at stuff. And when you're not happy, you don't just give up, just try again. Like, the more times you try it, each time will get a little bit better, a little bit better. I mean, I'm at the point now where I can pretty much set up most tanks, 90% of tanks, and they are just perfect from the outset. Not perfect, that's an exaggeration, but, you know, minimal effort. It's only when I get something wrong. Like recently, I set up a Aquaria tank, and I didn't put enough deep substrate in, which meant that the Aquarias dug it right out, and nutrients is in the water column. I got around that by putting aqua soil in bags, mesh bags, and then covering the sand. That won't happen now. But yeah, I just didn't give up. I just changed it around, took it all out, did something different. So that's the key, don't give up. Anyway, round here, we've got this little tub of tricks. This is what I want to use for all the details. So it's just like a mixture of sands and different gravels and bits and bobs. You can buy like specific products that have got a mixture, so look for those. If not, buy a few small bags of different grades and put them together. Should work really well. Just want to add a couple more stones to the outer areas. Push them into the sand a little bit. Just a bit more detail, really. You don't have to do this, but I think it looks a bit more natural. That's too straight. There we go. Yeah, I put that rock in against the wood, and it basically made a straight line of rocks. So if you see straight lines too much, it doesn't look too natural. So just bring one forward, and now it's doing that. You know, and out again, a little baby one next to that one. I think it's just adding, oh, I just tripped over that. Yeah, I think it's just adding a few more points of interest, like outcrops, and it means that you can plant next to them as well. Just creates a little bit more synergy. Look at that, eh? That's a word. But now I definitely feel we need something over here as well, because obviously we're looking from this angle. Not too far back, because I want stems back there, but like something here. Nothing huge. That one, a little darker one. Maybe like that. No. Maybe like that. Have a look from this angle. Yeah, it's just adding something, isn't it? Right, now we can go super detail mode. I need a pot. So this is often my favorite part of any build, because it's when it actually comes to life. And what you want to do, chuck stuff in. I mean, don't overthink it. I try and do it as quick as possible, just chucking it like that. Technically in nature, apparently sand gets pushed up against the edges, not stones. The stones sit in the middle. But I just feel like it looks a bit better when you just do it this way. There's a lighter sand with this lot, so I'm going to make sure I sprinkle it sort of everywhere. The lighter sand is very fine, so that'll actually just sink into the coarser sand on top. I'm going to chuck so much of this about that it's not really going to make much difference. Yeah, so I press the stones up against the big one and then let go as you run your fingers across it. And I find that that gives it the most sort of natural look. And then a sprinkle or a chuck. So that's good, and I think what we need now is more of the sort of medium-sized pebbles. So we've got like bigger ones, we've got tiny ones, to tie those in, because you'd have a full grading, wouldn't you, in a river system. We need some more sort of in-betweeny one. So yeah, just in this little bucket. I always put this size in this bucket for situations like this. So next to them, like that. All the different colours, which I think looks best. Some can be touching up against it, and others can be just sort of a little bit next to it. Oh, that one's got a little bit of algae on it. Bit of realism. I love these ones, the little purple ones as well. That is starting to look really good. I just want a bit more of the coarser gravel, which we've got down here, but it's mixed in with more of that sand. So I've got this is what I use for water changes to stop it stirring up the substrate, and I'm just going to sift out the sand. I mean, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Like the difference when adding the detail in terms of making it look more natural versus before. I put a before and after, you know, with this shot now, and hopefully you can appreciate it as much as I do. Bare sand for me has its place, but more in a sort of contemporary style design, do you know what I mean? Like a modern look. Whereas this, for me, is just way more like realism. Right then, planting. So here's what we've gone for in the tissue culture wise. Halanthian tenellum, because it just spreads really quickly but stays short. So it's going to give us that carpeting look in a low-tech tank that should look really natural and awesome. And it goes a long way. So I've got 3 of those. I've got Rotala hra, which is a stem plant. It's packed full there. It's going to grow up quickly. We can trim it, replant it. So we're going to get loads and loads of plants out of those 2 pots to start with, but even as it grows and we can retrim. Then I've got a little bit of glossostigma just for some details in the foreground. It's a little bit of a different texture then to the Halanthian tenellum, which is more of a leafy shape. And with the potted plants, so I've gone for 2 nice big Java ferns for the wood section and 2 Bulbitis as well. The 2 together just go really, really well. Grows at a decent pace. Now, because I'm limiting everything, I haven't got any Anubias, but if I was doing this, well, I'll tell you what, I can add plants as I go because that will be simulating what a hobbyist would do. As you go to sort of the shop, you go and get more plants, don't you? But to start with, this is what I'm sticking with. So we've got the 10 pots, like I said, and the 6 of the tissue culture. So we've got a nice big Crypt Beckettii. This will give us a different shape and tone to the Crypt Wenty green. This one looks beautiful, by the way. Look, here it is here. That is that plant. It's just so vibrant and it looks awesome, doesn't it? Then I've got some Juncus repens just because I love that wild look it gives. It grows fast and you can just trim it and replant it at all these different nodes that's come across it. So again, more bang for your buck for 1 plant pot. And then I've got Pogostemon erectus just because it looks so nice. It's fast growing, again, trimmable, replanting. And the fastest growing of all is Limnophila I've got here. I've got a Limnophila, one of the fastest growing plants, trim, replant. And then for even more of a red pop and a different texture again, we've got the Ludwigia Palustrius mini super red. So the leaves stay quite small. And yeah, it's one of my favorite plants that actually always looks good. So it's time to prep the plants. I'll start with the Halanthium, very simple. Peel the top off. There's normally a liquid in there as well. I haven't got a pot, oh well. Clean it up in a minute. There you go, look, a root system in a circle. Snap it at one corner and just sort of unfurl it. Is that the word? Unfurl? Unfurl, that's it. Then all you want to do is just break off little sections that you want to plant. And that's the same for all of these pots. So you just got to repeat the process. Then you'll end up with a load of little mini plants that you can stick into your substrate. It's going to spread nice and quickly. So you can see just 3 pots of easy grow. Halanthian tenellum goes a long way. And what I like to do is for the first half, I just sort of dot it evenly. Then I use the second half to fill in gaps, just to make sure you don't use the whole lot in like 3/4 and then be like, oh, I've still got another section. I've kept it all forwards because the back area will be a little bit more shaded and we want to be able to get that light down there to the leaves. And what that's going to do is then cause it to send out runners that will eventually just cover the whole lot, and that'll look awesome. And I think now I'm going to add in the ferns into the sections where I want them. I'm going to break them up. Usually I keep them whole, just for like massive impact, but in this instance, apart from one, I'm going to use one fern as a whole. The other one I'm going to break up and just dot it about and let it grow on those areas. Whereas usually I'll just use like 4 whole pots because I want that full look straight away, but we're not going for that this time. And it's even more, so this is Microsorum terapus, Aquaflora obviously, even more easy to prepare, I think. Give them a wiggle, and that should break any roots that have grown around it free. And you've got your rock wool, and there is actually a split in it, so if you just break it on the split, it all comes apart. Ferns are incredibly easy to get out of the pots and prepare. Break off any of the additional rock wool, get off as much as you can. I mean, it's so nutrient dense that you don't really want a ton of it going into the water column. And there you have it, your fern. So yeah, I want to use this one as a main focal point, and naturally your eyes are sort of drawn to that area there. Now I'm going to use the glue again to attach it, because if I just place it in, it's too big of a gap. Whereas if I put some glue all across that bottom section there, I can literally glue it exactly where I want it, like that. So that one pot just gives you massive amounts of greenness and vibrancy as a focal area. It's always quite good in the tank to have one focal area, and because the wood is knotting sort of in that section, it makes the ideal place. Just off center, because anything dead in the center can look a little bit odd. Your eyes don't tend to like it because it's symmetrical, and nature doesn't often look symmetrical. So now I just need to prepare the other fern, and it's very simple to be able to break it up as well. Same again. Oh, this one's really grown in nicely. Be all right. Rock wool off. And then the Java fern, you can see, runs along, they're called rhizomes. You can literally just take it and snap it. It will snap on a rhizome. And you can see you get shoots that come, that's the rhizome, the bottom bit, and then the shoots come off of it. They'll grow anywhere on those pieces. So if you just snap off a few like that, maybe snap this one in half. There we go, got 2 more clumps. And then 2 more again. And we can spread them around the aquarium. Bulbitis up next, and you can split it up like we did with the ferns, but I just think they look better in their sort of whole form. So I'm going to keep those like as 2 pieces. And of course you don't have to, but I find that when you mix them in with the ferns, it creates a really nice natural texture, almost like a forest floor somewhere. Next up is the Crypt Bucketii, and as you can see, look, all the rock wool is sort of intertwined. A fork is so good at this. Look, you just do this, pull it through. I used to use the pincers, and one day I couldn't find them, so I just used a fork, and then I realized it actually works way better because it gets right into the roots. You want to get as much of it off as possible, because this plant, although it looks like one, is actually lots and lots of different ones all clumped together, which means you can literally just pinch it there, split it, and now we've got lots of plants we can plant all around the aquarium rather than just one clumped section. Be a bit more careful with this because you can break off leaves quite easy, so make sure you just pull in the sort of clumpy bit apart. So I managed to get 5 plants out of that, and crypts like darker areas. Well, they don't necessarily like it, but they don't mind it. So if you can plant it close to your ferns, where there's like shaded areas, it'll do really well in there. Oh, actually got 6 plants, not 5. Even better. Time for the Juncus repens, which is spelt like that. This one is obviously, it's a proper grassy natural look, and I find it looks best when it's tucked next to little rocks or pebbles. If it's out in its own sort of area, it just looks a bit odd, so I'll just split it up. You can split it all just like anything else and just dot it around evenly. Doesn't look like much now, but those Juncus repens does send out runners just like the Halanthine tenellum, and it just gives it a really wild natural look. Right, it's now time for the free stem plants, and I'm just going to plant them in their groups. For some reason I always find that stems do better
when you keep them clumped together. I don't know if there's any science behind that at all, as most often is the case with what I do. But I do know it just tends to work better. I don't know why. So I'll keep them all together and just dot them along the background. As they grow, I can trim and replant next to them. So I'm putting the Ludwigia here because I want to be able to see it quite clearly. Just give a nice pop of red in that background section. I'm going to put it right in the middle. And then as it grows and we can trim it and place pieces in the foreground and behind it. So create like a whole sort of section like that there of all red. That'll look really good. And the Limnophylla grows really, really fast. So I'm thinking background section here. And then what I can do is very clearly trim, replant, full green section up here. And then the Progostemon erectus just poking over this rock in the middle will look really good. Very vibrant and green. And then planting complete for now. I say for now because, you know, hobbyists go once or every other week to get new plants, don't they? I will limit myself just to a couple of plants adding per week, let's say. I think that's pretty realistic of what people would do, right? So nothing left to do but fill the whole thing up, and then I can stop spraying it down every 10 minutes. It's so warm in here, so anything dries out straight away. Obviously, I heat the room instead of each individual tank because it's way more economical. Struggled with that one. Anyway, let's fill her up. So I will be filling from my water butt. So I've got a spout here, look, which is attached to the reel, which goes in the water butt, which has already been filled with water and dechlorinated as well. So it's all the right temperature and ready to go. Doesn't really matter on this tank because obviously we're not putting fish in straight away, but usually if I want to just do a quick water change or put fish in a tank I've just filled up, I can because the water is perfect temperature of the room. And I need to make sure I place something down for the water to be able to drip onto, because if it goes in there too fast and stirs all that up, all the nutrients underneath are going to go in the water column, which we do not want because that can cause algae in the start. It wouldn't matter if you're doing like loads of water changes, but we're going to try and do as minimal as possible in this early phase. Remember, it's a self-sustaining ecosystem. Once it's gone through its sort of bedding in process, sometimes that can take a month, sometimes I can have it done in 2 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how long it takes in this one without so many plants to start with. So I've got my colander jug thingy again, put a rock in it, gives it some weight. Then I'll just place that in the aquarium on top of some filter sponge, turn it around, and that just allows the water to get distributed nice and evenly on top of that sand, stops it stirring up. I was just filling it up and thought, hang on, didn't I have more stem plants than that? And I just remembered I didn't prep and plant the ones that are in the easy grow, the HRA, or any of the glossostigma, so I'll stick that in now. Luckily we've not filled up too much, and yeah, whoops. Boom, filled up. It looks so sparse compared to what I'm used to seeing. Slight murkiness to it as well. That is because I had to replant those plants which kicked up a load of dust, and obviously there is no filter on it, and there's not going to be a filter on it, but there will be some movement of the water. How am I going to generate that then? So I've got a Superfish surface skimmer and then a really, really coarse piece that goes inside as well. Basically it never gets clogged because it is just so porous, which means there's no maintenance. That's the whole point of this tank. I don't mind using any equipment that you can just keep on and it doesn't require maintenance. I mean, maybe that gets cleaned out once every 6 months or something, I don't know. I also wanted some surface agitation. Obviously you get surface agitation from the skimmer because it's pulling water in, but I wanted a little bit of ripple, especially these lights. So what I've done is I've taken the inlet, like of the outlet, and I just heated up the bottom and just twisted it upwards, and now the water should shoot upwards. It seems a shame to have spotlights like this and not have that ripple effect. So hopefully this generates, you know, a little bit. It won't be huge, but better than nothing. I could use a wave maker as well. I haven't got a spare one at the moment, but that's an option later on if I want to use it. I don't know yet. Stick that on. Actually, let's go right in the back corner. Right out the way. Or saying that, the plug won't reach that side. Plus, that looks ridiculous, doesn't it? Just random piece of equipment. Does it? Yeah, it does. It doesn't look great there. I'll stick it on the other side because the plugs are that side as well. Yeah, little ripple. Hey, nice. There we go, look. Looking special. And obviously the surface skimmer is great for flow,
gas exchange and cleaning the surface. So it's doing 3 jobs in one. You can get a wave maker as well. That'd also do a job because a wave maker requires no maintenance. You know, one like I've got my Mabuna tank here is really decent. It's only little, you can barely see it, but it generates a lot of movement on the top. And because of that movement, most of the time you don't get any scum either. Like there's a little tiny bit of an oil slick I could see, but I think only I would be able to see that. The rest of the tank though, looking immense. You've been fed, you greedy piggies. Now, one last thing I want to do, because my wood has been underwater for a long time, it's probably released most of its tannins, and when you guys get some wood, you might find that it releases some, depending on the wood you use, of course. Spider wood like this doesn't really release much tannins, neither does the manzanita that's already in my tank. Like this stuff, yeah, not a lot of tannins at all. But big pieces of driftwood, they do release some tannins. And if we come in tomorrow and this is like crystal clear, and that's not what you guys experience, it's not gonna be very fair, is it? So I'm gonna put a little bit of bogwood in it just to simulate it. Here we go, look, here's a fresh piece of aged wood, mangrove wood from Superfish. That has never been underwater. I'm gonna stick that in. It's probably gonna float actually. Will you float? You just kind of float, kind of don't. I'll have to put a rock on it. There we go, look, it did sink. It's quite dense, that kind of wood, so it was floating because there was a couple of air bubbles trapped inside of it. But yeah, I'll leave that in there, and then that's going to simulate sort of, it's a very chunky, thick piece of wood, so imagine that spread over. I think that's quite a good example of the amount of tannins that will be released. So yeah, another really successful day. See you tomorrow.